everybody, it is Libby with Fearlessness. What is fearlessness? Well, it's that underlying grit that we have as entrepreneurs to forge ahead. Even when hope seems distant, it's the courage to walk through those fires of hell, knowing that you're going to come out not just stronger on the other side, but better. Stay tuned and learn how to get fearlessness. I'm your host, Libby DeLucien, and today's guest is Teresa. Teresa, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do, where you're at, how long you've been in business. "15 years, that's a long time, Teresa. And she comes from my neck of the woods. Oh, it's okay. I'm from Oklahoma, so you're not too far from my hometown in Hugo, which is about 2 hours south. And Teresa and I met. If it lags a little bit, Teresa, don't worry. It's recording in high definition, so no worries if it lags a little bit. Teresa and I met in CBF, so we're both residential cleaning business owners. So Teresa, I want to hear from you. Why did you get into home services? Why did you get into cleaning?
So the reason I started was in the service industry. I found myself employable. So I had a friend who had neck surgery that needed some help around the house, was mostly hanging out with her, then it turned into cleaning, and it's just started organically.
I love that story. Many of us in home service, even in entrepreneurism, start out of a place of like need, desperation, necessity. I started mine from a divorce because if I got a job, he was going to use a job against me to take the kids away. And I started like working under the table, like working for somebody like a friend and working like on the side so that I could make enough money to just really survive at the beginning. So I love to hear that story because it's amazing what we do in times of desperation.
Absolutely. I was living in a sober house at the time, and I had to go to some anonymous meetings, and I had to pay rent, and I had to get a job, and it was just awesome that it came along at the time.
I love that. So our cleaning company here in Fort Myers, we actually clean a couple sober houses, women sober houses. We started cleaning the owner's house, and then her goal was to create these houses because she went through the same thing.
Right.
And she has a handful of them here in Fort Myers, and we clean them for free.
Right. Oh, that's awesome.
Because they help women.
Thank you.
They help women get back on their feet. Like if they've gone through an addiction process or divorce or issues, we all go through hard times in life. Like if you don't think that we don't, we may look like we have it together, but there were times where we didn't. And the only reason we have it together now is because we learned the hard way.
Oh, heck yeah. I am not the same person now that I was 15 years ago. So, yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
I want to learn more about that transformation. What do you think, like, what were the biggest things that you felt that you had to do to kind of keep up with the company? Just tell us about that journey.
So the company now, can I tell you real quick how I got to here?
Yeah.
So I was cleaning this lady's house, and she had 10 dogs and 13 cats, and I probably spent like 6 years cleaning her house for 3 hours a day at $12 an hour. And then some people found out I was doing that, and they started asking me to clean their house, and the company just grew, and it just grew. After a while, I realized that I needed some help because it was getting too much for me. And I brought in some contractors, the 1099 contractors, and I never could get anybody to clean exactly the way I did. So,
Yep.
when I had two 1099 contractors who were able to do what I did, but all I knew how to do was clean. I didn't know how to run a business. I had no clue where to go from here. And I kept seeing that CBL, Cleaning Business Fundamentals. I know you're part of that too. come up on my Facebook. And one day I called Debbie and she told me, she said, Teresa, you can't afford this. And I said, I can't afford not to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And that's when we became Level Up Cleaning. Yeah.
I love that. Somebody asked the other day in social media, what's like, how fast can I get back my investment? They were looking for feedback on joining a peer, a mastermind. It might have even been CBF. And my response is like, what is it going to cost you not to join?
Exactly.
And
So
I love that.
I was looking for, of course, to learn how to make more money, but I was learning how to have a peace of mind. I was absolutely pulling my hair out because I didn't know what I didn't know. And the more I've been in CBF and been around people like you, there's so much I don't know, and I'm so excited to be learning all of this.
I love that. So let's talk on the fearlessness side, some of the things that may be a little bit harder, but there are lessons, right? We appreciate those lessons.
Oh, yeah.
So like, I appreciate them. I mean, I don't know about you, but I even appreciate my past. And I know that's really hard to swallow for some people. Because if I wouldn't have went through the stuff I went through, I would not be the person I am today. Like maybe I wouldn't even know Teresa. Like maybe I wouldn't even have met my husband. And so I am so appreciative of just taking my past and being able to learn from it. And so when it comes to business, for you, what was the hardest part? You got into it a little bit, but what was the hardest part? One, being unemployable. And
so
then
the hardest part
go ahead.
Being unemployable is obviously I couldn't go find a job doing anything except for waiting tables. And with, being an alcoholic, that's not an ideal job. You're trying to get sober. So there was the going into people's houses and cleaning their houses, and I'm not insured, and no one ever asked, do you have a past? But oh my gosh, what if they found out I did? And would it absolutely destroy me? I remember that fear of always wondering, what if they found out who I really was? But the 12-step program I'm in, a lot of those people knew who I was. They knew my whole story. They built me. Those were my first clients. And I found the more I was honest about who I am, the more my clients felt honest about being who they were. And I think it gives me some empathy for people and what they're going through.
I love that story. I didn't share mine for a long time because I was ashamed of they're like, oh, how could she let that happen to her? Right. You're scared of what you think other people are going to say or think.
Exactly.
I like that story because you said the more I shared, like the more I grew, the more business I got, the more people were willing to open up. Right. And it has a lot to do with empathy, I think, but it's because it makes us, or it makes you, Teresa, more relatable.
Right. Exactly. Relatable. Yes.
You're relatable. You're not untouchable. Like, when I first started coaching for Debbie, is a great example, is I thought like, oh, I had to be perfect. Like no one could know anything about me. And then you're soon like, well, nobody likes the girl that's perfect. That's the cheerleader that none of us like, that, she's too perfect. And also I found myself not growing personally because I wasn't sharing. I wasn't being honest, and I wasn't helping. It's not that I was lying. I just was keeping that from people.
Right. Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm.
And I went through this exercise, and I don't know if you've ever been through it. It's Reiki breathing. Like you go through it with a Reiki coach. It's a breathing exercise. I went through it with a bunch of guys. I was in a male, it's not male, but I was in a SaaS group, a software group, and it's mostly men. At that time I was the only girl there. And we went through this exercise, and by the time we were done, like we were all crying together and like hugging each other. But that was like the moment of saying like, I have to share this and I have to talk about it, or I'm not going to grow. Like I'm going to be stuck here forever.
I totally agree with that. I've also found, Libby, when I share parts of my story that I'm comfortable sharing with people, which is most of it. It gives them permission to be authentic with me. There's just so much space there for healing on both sides that we just get to be human. And the thing about the perfect person, I never think I can measure up to those people. But I know that if you and the other coaches and people that I've seen in CBF can grow like you guys have, I have so much respect for you. Oh, Libby, so much respect for how hard you are working out there and busting down doors for cleaners and females. But if you can do it, maybe, maybe I can too.
Oh, I know you can too. I've seen you grow and I've been watching you and it's been great to see. And I love the fact that you're sharing that story. I think it also builds a closer team with your staff. Like if they know that, hey, I've made mistakes. Hey, it's okay, but guess what? I'm fixing that. I've changed. And I think it builds that closer connection. I think as women in business, we have a little bit of a superpower because we're really good at building community, right? And we're also more naturally empathetic. Sorry, guys, to the guys. But we are, and those are superpowers that for the longest time, I avoided because again, I was too scared of what I thought I was supposed to act a certain way or do a certain thing or what people are going to say about me, instead of leaning into those superpowers. Yes. So, Teresa, as far as that journey of growing, so after you created Level Up and now you've been growing,
yes.
What's been the biggest challenge for you to grow as the owner, as an entrepreneur?
I think the biggest challenge for me is stepping into the leadership role and not being everybody's friend. That I think that was the hardest thing for me. Like I would make a policy and I'll go, that's okay with everyone else. And I don't do that anymore. I say, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to move forward. I mean, I always accept input, but at the end of the day, I'm the boss. I'm going to make the decisions of where we're going to go with this company.
Love it. I think that was, for me, that was a hard phase as well. I think, so the owner to, for all of our listeners, there are phases that you, the owner, have to go through to get your business to the next level, like to level up.
Yes,
and I think they coincide with like number of employees or revenue, right? So it's like at 250,000, at $500,000, at 750, at $1 million, at $1.5 million. When I look back and look at who I was, I'm a totally different person through every one of those phases. And it's okay. But what's not okay is that we have to grow faster. We have to grow faster than the company, or we're stalling the growth.
Right.
You can spend all the money you want in marketing. You can spend all the money you want in recruiting. But I had a great mentor. He's such a great guy. He said, if you want to hit this goal, he looked at my goals. He goes, you're the problem. I'm like, you didn't even look at my company. How are you telling me I'm the problem? He goes, because the speed of growth that you need to achieve is going to be difficult. The company's easy. You just put more money in marketing, right? You hire more people. It's an engine. But if you can't manage and you can't lead, which takes personal growth, you're not going to achieve it. The company will outgrow you and you will stagnate it.
Yes.
And for me, that like changed everything. After that, I was like, oh my God, like I got to take myself serious. When before, and even some days, I don't know, do you get this, Teresa, where you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I'm responsible for people and their families and their kids?
Yes.
I'm like,
it can be. Yes.
You're like, oh my God, what do they really know that I don't know what I'm doing sometimes? Shh. We're just like, shh, don't say anything.
So where I'm at right now, Libby, and you'll probably remember this in your journey, I finally got past thinking that I'm different and my employees are going to stay with me forever and I don't have to be hiring all the time. And oh, that was such a hard lesson. If you could see my past, like before June, May, and April numbers, it was down because I wasn't hiring. But I've started hiring, and we have 9 cleaners right now, and we're passing the
Nice.
50 mark. But I'm comfortable in that 253 mark with 5, 6 techs. This is a whole different thing. And I'm looking at the schedule, and I can't count anymore to see, well, there's 5. We just need one more for 6. There's more. And I know it's going to, like you said, this company's going to grow. What do I got to do to get out of my comfort zone? Because
Yeah.
I like my comfort zone, and it's scary to step outside of it.
Well, that great mentor that I had,
Yes.
he had mentioned, and I cannot remember the name of the book. It's been a few years. I don't even have the book, but I did read it. My books are up here. That's why I'm always looking up. And it was a book about being intentional about your size, right? About the size of company you're keeping. And so, because when you own multiple ventures, so I have Woot Recruit, I have Organize It, we have a couple locations, I have another software, Service Cart. But when you own multiple ventures, something is going to take a back seat. You can't put 100% of you towards everything. It just is not going to happen. And so when I looked at that, and he had said, he recommended this book, and I read it, or I listened to it on Audible. It was great. I can't remember the name. If I remember it, I'll drop it in the show notes when we publish this. But it was about being intentional with the company size you chose. Like, hey, I love $1 million company. I figured out how to get 25% profit. It's stable. Here's what we have to do to grow it. I'm going to keep it here because I can idle that while I go work on this.
Right.
Because I would like to say that you don't always have to be growing. It's like, what do we want in life? Like, we always want to achieve something, but is the cleaning company our vehicle to get us to the next mountain, to the next thing? Right. I'm working on a new logo for the Libby DeLucien brand because I'm coming out with a book, and we're starting another software that's going to be around playbooks and scaling businesses. So I'm working on my new logo, and it's 3 mountains, because we get to the mountain, like we said, oh, I want to be a $500,000 company. And we get to the top of that mountain, and we kind of look around, and we're like, well, that didn't feel what I thought it was. Like, I'm still not fulfilled. And you look over, and you're like, oh, $1 million. That will make me happy. We get to the top of that mountain. We get there, and we're kind of like, Like, I remember when I reached my first million with the cleaning company, I didn't even stop. If it wasn't for Debbie giving us a green jacket, I didn't even stop to recognize it. When Woot Recruit made its first million, I had a fractional COO, and he goes, you should celebrate. This is a huge milestone. And I'm like, let's just keep going. Like, I got work to do. Yeah. And he's like, no, you need to like acknowledge it. And I didn't even stop to acknowledge it. But then there's that third mountain, right? It's that, why are we here? And some people say that third mountain is the person we needed most in our darkest moment. Right. And that's why I have slowly come over to really helping people, women in business or women with a past, that it doesn't have to define them. It's not who they are, right? If anything, it makes us stronger and more resilient. Because when we're dealt with something hard in business, and you look at what you dealt with in the past, you're kind of like, oh, that's a piece of cake. And what I've noticed is our first 1 or 2 ventures are the vehicles that help us get to the third mountain, right? Maybe the cleaning company can serve, clean those houses for women that are in recovery. Maybe it's the vehicle to give me the time freedom that I need to get to the third mountain, or the money you need to donate to the thing that's your third mountain, whether it's you need money freedom, time freedom. There's another freedom, money freedom, time freedom. I don't remember the third one. But it's so interesting, like, to hear the phases that you went through And I want to hear, what's the next phase for you?
I So just so you know, I'm not a revenue chaser. I'm not.
Yep.
I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it to a million. But I am. I am. I did reach that level. Um, Dan Plata said something basically kind of like what you just said. When you get that million, then what? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what is the why behind what you're doing? In my therapist, I know I'm not answering your question. I promise I'll come back to it. And
It's
my
okay.
therapist asked me one time, she said, Teresa, do you realize how far you've come? Do you give yourself permission to just sit and realize that? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. She goes, no. Do you realize how far you have come? Do you realize that you're worthy of this, that you've done it? And no. Do I sit with it and look back and go, oh, no, I don't. And I think we should. I think we should
Mm-hmm.
stop and, like you said, celebrate and
I
just
still have that issue, Teresa.
yeah.
It comes from
Oh,
so
I know
much
you do. You
emotional.
are a superwoman. Go, go, go.
No,
Yes.
but it comes from my past, like that emotional neglect that I had, that nothing is good enough. And I'm constantly trying to make it good enough. And, it's exhausting, one, but I do think that I'm just now coming to it's okay to make money, because I wasn't a revenue chaser either. Like, I want to provide good jobs and I just want to take care of my kids. Like, but at the end of the day, we need that revenue to get to the third mountain. And the third
Yes,
mountain,
yes, we did. Yes, we did.
the third mountain is why we're here. It's helping others. It's the greater purpose of what we're here to do.
So art's doing that
Mhm.
thing. What happens? What's next? What happens next?
Mhm.
Like, get your sales good, get this good. And the top one is, what is my purpose? What,
Yep.
legacy, building that legacy, and what am I trying to fulfill? I will tell everybody all day long, Teresa, what is your why? And my why is, honestly, I want my grandkids and my kids to remember me as somebody besides Teresa, who messed up so much,
Mhm.
that I'm pulling us through, generational poverty and all of that kind of stuff. But Libby, I want to do this to prove to myself I can't, because I've never thought I would be capable of being a boss, much less a business this size that I know and it's going to go bigger. It scares me a little bit. So
Well,
I I I I think because it's so important to me. It's okay if I fail here and there, because I know that's where the lessons are. I don't want to fail. I don't want to screw up. So
no.
the next thing for me is to keep learning and to keep reaching out to see how how big this can get. That's egotistical, I think, a little bit,
Nope.
but how big can this really go? How much is in me?
Yeah. And that's great. I want to talk about legacy. And
Legacy, yes, yes.
I have a perspective on legacy, because you had said something. You had said you don't want to leave your kids, your grandkids, or you want to leave your kids or your grandkids with,
Good memory, yes.
with a memory. But my perspective on legacy, and this comes from Dan Martell, because he's one of my coaches, and he's drilled this into our heads. Legacy is creating a life that you live now, right? It's a life that you live now that you never want to retire from. So it's living those moments now. So, instead of saying, I want to leave my kids, I want to leave my grandkids with this, that, or money, or whatever, or I want to be known as X, Y, and Z when I pass away, why don't be known for it now?
Now. Mm.
Live it now. Create a job you never want to retire from, because Chris's dad, my husband's dad, is a great example. One of the most smartest, nicest men I've ever met in my life. But all he did was live to leave a legacy, and he died before he could have finished it. And so he left nothing but memories. And they weren't even the greatest memories, because he didn't finish out his journey of what he was trying to leave. And I think that's so true. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. So, and this is going to sound horrible when I say this, but like,
No,
I
do it.
probably spend way too much money traveling personally, but I'm giving my kids the legacy now. Right? I'm giving them that experience now with me versus saying when mom dies, oh, she left us money to do X, Y, and Z. Or instead doing it now. And, that might be wrong or bad that, I'm saying, oh, maybe I shouldn't be spending this much money. But you know what it does do to me? It motivates me to work even more.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Because you're kind of like, well.
Well, so I wanted to take out, this is so silly, Libby, but I wanted to take out like, I think it was $200 to go buy a purse. And I'm like sitting there telling myself, well, I work hard. I deserve this purse. And I talked myself out of it because the business needs it. And I should just do it. I should go get my purse. I should buy my grandkids stuff instead of always, I'm building the business. I'm building. Where does it end? When is it okay for me to go, okay, I can pull a little money for me to do something fun? And traveling, oh my gosh, Libby, I would love to travel. I'd love to take my grandkids to Disney World.
Well, just call it an office meeting.
Yes.
It's a whole nother topic. We're not going to get into it.
I need that SOP book to come out. I need the playbook to come out so this can be self-running, so I can go do a vacation.
And you could have it's called a retreat where you're talking about business while you're there.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and I didn't believe that because I grew up with like saying we have to leave money. I have to leave my house. I have to leave X, Y, and Z. I have to leave this impression instead of leaving the impression, let's make it now. I want to see it. I want to see the difference I'm giving or doing or the difference I'm creating in my children and in my employees and in my friends and in my family. I want to see it versus if I die, I'm never going to see it.
True.
I just was, and
Libby,
some of this,
I'm learning so much. Let's do a podcast every day.
And some of this information could be dangerous because you could just take it and go blow all your money. That's not what I'm saying either. Well, for our listeners, me too, for our listeners, but why keep depriving ourselves of certain things? So many business owners. I did the same thing. I felt bad if I wasn't in the office every day. I felt bad if I wasn't working alongside, the salespeople or the marketing people. But here's the thing, Teresa. We have to go out and play sometimes. We have to go out and do things. We have to get away because of the level of stress and risk we deal with as the entrepreneur. Our money, our pay is not guaranteed. And because of those reasons, we have to be okay with saying like, hey, I'm going to go work on the beach today because I am completely burnt out and I can't even think of a new idea nor absorb anything. I need to get away. I need to play hard. That's why you see a lot of successful people like play hard, work hard.
Yes.
Right? They don't just... Great book. One of my mentors, Jonathan Potoshnik, he's the owner of Service Autopilot. He recommended this book and it's called The Power of Full Engagement. I read that book and I was like, oh my God. They talk about corporate athletes, but we're not a corporate athlete. But the way the book talked was like, we as entrepreneurs just work and we just work hard and we keep working and working and working and we come to burnout and we try to work through it and then we become less effective, less efficient. Versus the real successful people out there in the world work hard, play hard. They know how to disconnect, go away, and then they come back and work hard. And the next time they come back to work hard, they can work harder, longer, and then they disconnect. It's kind of like interval training. You know how they call that, where you're raising your heart rate on purpose and it burns more calories. It's the same theory, but with working. And what we tend to do is the books that we just keep working. And then we become like inefficient blobs of people who don't even accomplish anything and have apathy for our own businesses. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Painted a picture of me there, Libby. It's work, 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 work. And if you're having a conversation with me outside of work, even if you're not an entrepreneur, work is getting weaved in there somewhere. Because I never expected to be here. So to get there, I'm just like all the time, 24/7. There's very little disconnect.
So, Teresa, since you've gotten to a point that you didn't think you would achieve,
yes,
how are you going to get yourself to the next point?
I'm going to rest. How am I going to get to the next point?
Do you have any plans?
I don't. I mean, I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. I'm going to keep the advertising going. I'm learning what SOP and playbooks are.
I want to hear about what you're going to do for you to get you to the next point.
Oh, what am I going to do for me? I would love to say, like you do, I have a whole bunch of mentors. I would love to get mentored more on that. What do I need to be doing for me? Maybe I don't know the answer to that.
So it's just something to think about. When I passed my first million, I went to everyone who I knew who was at 2 million or over. And I asked them, I think I asked 4 or 5 people. They weren't direct mentors. One of them was, but the most of them were just industry friends or like lawn care, cleaning, commercial cleaning, house cleaning. I asked them, I said, what did you do to get yourself from 1 million to 2? And I got great insight on a few things for the business, personally. So it was a mixture of personal and professional insight. But it was like probably one of the greatest things that I did was ask that specific question. Hey, I'm at 1 million. What did you do to get yourself ready to get to 2?
What do I need to do to personally grow, Teresa?
Well, first, that's the question. That's the first question I would ask. And you have a great network to ask of people. My first thing I would tell you is work on yourself, which is your health and your food.
Yes.
Work on your marriage. Because if we do not have that foundation, the stress that we have to deal with and the anxiety and the risk, we cannot come home and deal with issues at home. We just can't. We will collapse. It will stagnate our growth. Professionally. Then my family. So me, my marriage, my family, and then my business. Which sounds weird.
No, it doesn't. That is some fantastic advice. So from where I come from, of course, the whole sobriety thing's got to come first. Got to stay sober. Me and the husband, we need to do some of those date things. I know you and Chris are doing date. Is it like every day, or you set it up on your calendar?
Yep.
My husband and I were he was a truck driver and now he's home. We do walk the dog every night together.
Well, that's nice.
But you know what we talk about, Libby?
What?
My business.
Work.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your ideas, your aspirations to travel. Like your dreams, your goals, his dreams and goals.
Yes.
Because we have to have that support. And that's why I go me, my marriage, then my family. Because I need my parents to support me. I need my siblings to understand me. I need to keep those connections, or my children. I even put my children after myself and my marriage, then my children come in that family category. And, as a mom, we grew up saying our children come first.
Right.
And I learned that those kids grow up and leave. I already have one that left.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah, they do.
Well, why did I put everything into that kid? He just left me. He's 26, so he needed to leave.
I've met him.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, it's me first, because first, and it sounds selfish. And I even had to go to therapy for this one, because if it wasn't me first, then how would I be a great mom, a great business owner, a great leader, a great manager, a great wife? You can't. And I think for us women entrepreneurs who have children, we are always trying to put our kids first, and it's almost like self-sabotaging.
My kids are all grown. But them
That's great.
grandbabies, ooh, I have an 8-year-old grandson and a 6-year-old grandson. That's my heart.
I told Chris the other day, we have a house in Georgia, and we were packing up the house in Georgia to leave. And I wanted to stay longer because it's just quiet. It's in the woods, and it's so flippin' boring that my kids hate it. But I could stay there forever. And I told Chris, I'm like, I can't wait till our kids are gone so we can just stay here as long as we want. I said, I don't mean I'm going to whack them gone. I mean, until they grow up and they're gone. He goes, well, we could think about whacking them. And I'm like, no, when they grow up and they're gone, he's like, we have a long ways to go with Yaya. I was like, yeah, maybe one of her brothers can watch her.
So I'm originally from Tennessee, and I lived in Chattanooga for a little bit. So Georgia is right there. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yes. So, as business owners, especially as women, I think we're confused. We have things backwards. We always put ourselves last. We always put ourselves last. Stop putting yourself last. Everybody, ladies, even men. I know some men in not healthy relationships, and they keep putting themselves last. It's not always applicable to men. It's not always applicable to women.
First. Yep.
But we have to fill it first. Because if we don't, we will not survive this ride called business, entrepreneurism. It will eat us alive from the inside out.
I can say it all day long. I got to fill my cup first, or I'm pouring from it. I know all the memes. It's applying it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think the reason too we don't apply it is because nobody knows.
Right.
Like, it's a dirty little secret. I neglected myself today. I didn't eat lunch, or maybe I didn't work out. It's okay because nobody knows but me.
Right.
But what it does is over time, it chips away. It erodes that self-confidence that we have, that we need to make risky decisions, to make fast decisions. We've eroded it because we keep putting ourselves last.
I can tell when I'm getting super empty because I will like say stuff to Jody, my office manager, in a not nice way, and I'm like, where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no. Or one of my employees would just be coming through to say hi, and I'm like, and it's not even who I am,
Yeah.
There's signs that need to slow down and take care of me. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. Totally love that. So before we wrap up, what keeps you going?
This into a coaching call. Libby, thank you so much for all you
do. No, but Teresa, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated? What's your passion to keep this going? Even during the hard times.
Got to pay them bills. Honestly, this is so important to me. I love level up cleaning. I want to see what it can become, but my grandbabies, yeah.
I love that.
I wish I had a great answer for that, but I get up in the morning and I don't hate this job. I love coming to the office. I love seeing what we're doing with this business.
That's amazing. And no, it doesn't matter. it doesn't matter what your why is. It's your why.
Yeah.
So there's no reason, you don't have to defend it. I mean, I think for your grandkids, that's amazing.
I want to watch it grow, but I do also want to put a temperature on to pay attention to what's going on here, instead of looking fantastic on the outside and maybe fall apart a little bit on the inside.
Yeah, and I think as women and moms, we're automatically those nurturing people, like, let us go fix it.
Yes.
But we're broken inside. And it's good to do a self-check. And so for all of our listeners who may be mom entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, do a self-check. How are you feeling? If you feel like those innovative juices, that excitement, that passion for your business is gone, can you not retain any information, is a great sign for me. Like, if I read a book or watch a course and I have no clue what I just watched or read, I know I'm done. I'm up here.
Right.
I need to take a break
and refresh.
Yes. And then do some self-reflection at night. What are you grateful for? What was great today? What worked well? Don't do your to-do list. Just sit down and reflect. And if you don't have
up for the things you messed up on,
no,
make it morbid reflection. Just moving on.
moving on. But the self-reflection is really going to help you see, oh my God, like I'm not grateful for anything. We're doing this with Yaya. She's 6 and she's not grateful for anything. I'm like, oh my gosh, little girl.
There's always something to be grateful for. That is my whole thing. I'm on a little text thread with a couple of my friends in recovery, and we stop and take a breath. I'm grateful for socks. I'm grateful for this water. I mean,
Yes.
And right now, I'm grateful for you, for all of my people in CBF that have walked this path before me or walking it with me. That there's so much gratitude for surrounding myself with entrepreneurs that are on the same path.
Well, Teresa, I love that. And I think that's a great way to wrap up. And for our listeners, if you don't know what CBF is, we said it a few times, but we'll make sure to put it in the show notes as well. CBF is Debbie Sardone's Cleaning Business Fundamentals. It's a group that I joined when I first started my cleaning company. I met Teresa in, and many other of our guests from the podcast have come from CBF as well. There's another group I joined, which was Jonathan Potashnik's Service Autopilot Elite Academy. Many of our Fearlessness guests are from that group as well. So we're very heavy into the lawn care, landscape cleaning, commercial cleaning, and residential cleaning, home service sectors. But Teresa, thank you so much for being a guest on the Fearlessness Podcast. And I want to thank our listeners. And if you would like to see more episodes like this, visit thefearlessness.com. And I also want to thank our sponsors, Woot Recruit, because without them, I wouldn't be able to have this great podcast. And guys, that's a wrap into the heart of fearlessness. Remember, every step we take towards or moves us towards our own strengths and courage. Keep walking through those fires of hell, because on the other side lies a version of yourself that's unstoppable. I'm Libby, reminding you to embrace your fearlessness. Until next time, stay brave, stay bold, and keep pushing forward.